Welcome back to another episode of the Easy Button Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Cole Ruud-Johnson. Today we have an awesome client of ours, Mr. Mason Matteoni, on the show with us, who is in Seattle, Washington, doing deals. Welcome to the show, Mason. Why don't you give everyone listening just a quick high-level overview, who you are, what do you have going on, what is Mason up to when it comes to the world of real estate?
Yeah, thanks, Cole. 3.5 years ago, I got married, bought a house, had my first kid right away. I'm working the W-2 at this time. And I always thought a corporate job was just the right way to go until retirement. At that same time of getting married and those big events happening in my life, I began to learn about real estate and the idea of earning money that is not coming directly from a W-2. Then I suffered lots of shiny object syndrome. Ultimately, when I was attracted to the concept of making active income wholesaling, that's when I started cold calling myself just 30 minutes a day. And this is about 2 years ago now. I looked at my schedule, looked at my life. I said, how much time can I actually afford to cold call myself? I didn't have any money that I wanted to spend. I had a little bit of time. And so that's what I did. I spent about 2-hour chunks every single weekday. While I was at my job, I had some flexible time. And I just focused on one list, and that was the probate list. I pulled probate cases directly from my county, Pierce County. And throughout that 2 hours, I pulled those cases, skip trace, and made those calls every single day. I would go for my daily outside walk from taking a break from work, and I would make those calls every day. 6 weeks down the line is when I got my first call that led to my first deal. So 2 months after that is when my first deal closed, $60,000 fee that I split with a partner.
Wow.
And so then I just poured that money back into marketing, and some marketing worked, some didn't. And ultimately I found Easy Button, and I've been with you guys for 3 months now.
When I first met you back in January, Mason and I met back at that Ryan Dostey was doing here in San Diego that I spoke at. Where were you at that? I know you had a partnership, but where were things at that? I know you're kind of in transition. We talked a few times after that before you even started working with us at Easy Button. But where were you then? Just kind of run us through that, because I know that was kind of an inflection point for you after your kind of initial run-up that you just went through.
Sure. At that time, I was 3 or 4 deals into wholesaling. I completed 4 deals with my business partner. We just split everything 50-50. Seemed to be working out. Things were moving along. I was trying to learn, which is what brought me to that event. I met you in person. And it was funny. I went up to you after the event, and you're like, yeah, man, actually, I don't think Easy Button is a good fit for you right now. I think I think you should close a couple more deals, hammer the phones. And so that's exactly what I did. I hammered the phones, closed 2 deals the next 5 months, and then gave you guys another call. And it seemed like it was a little bit of a better fit this past July to join Easy Button.
I love that. Something I catch myself telling people often, it's not in my best interest, right? As an owner and CEO of Easy Button, obviously my interest is to get as many clients as possible, but I find myself telling people more often they're not the right fit than that they are the right fit at that time. And what Mason's talking about, the reason I went into that with him is because I just think for a lot of people, if you're in that hustler phase, chasing your first deal, your second deal, your third deal, you just need to be on the phone talking to as many sellers as possible, not investing in anything other than that. And so that was why I thought it was not the right time for Mason. But what ultimately led you to pulling the trigger and working with us at Easy Button? I know it was a big leap, right? I'm not afraid to say that what we do isn't it's not like our community. Our community, the off-market method's $57 a month. Our deal engine program is much more than that. What led you to making that leap and coming on board when you did in July?
Well, I had been following you for a little bit before I even met you in person. And I appreciate your content. I appreciated the fact that you're familiar with the market that I live in. You're just real with your content, anti-guru. Then I met you in person in San Diego earlier this year. And that's when you told me Easy Button wouldn't be a good fit. Then I went through some changes. But, the only preview that I was able to receive from Easy Button was through content, through social media. And I just believed after 2 intro calls with your team member Nelson that Easy Button had the right tools and resources that I was looking for. It solved 2 main problems: lead generation, and it provided coaching. For me, where I was at with the business, I just thought it was a good fit. I think that was the right next step for me and my business.
I love that, man. So when you came on board, you were trying to figure out both, what I call like the next stepping stone in all the fog, right? It's like when you get in a business, you do a couple deals, everything's foggy. It's like, okay, I did deals, I made money. I want to make a lot more of it. How do I do that? Where do I reinvest the money that I am making? And then you also wanted to solve the lead generation portion with that. And that's one of the biggest things for us. And how has that experience been with having us help you solve those 2 things? Because a lot of times I think people say, oh, we help you with sales, and they don't do anything to actually help you with sales. How have we helped you not just with the leads? What is the process of actually getting help on the sales side been? And has that been impactful for you?
Absolutely. I mean, as other clients have mentioned in your podcast, you have a great coaching team. I'm working with Tyler, and we do some one-on-one, but a lot of it is group. And I think a huge factor is what you put into it. So you have to come every day, and the way it's structured right now, it's sort of like office hours. You show up in the afternoon, hop in the call, ask your questions, hop out if you have to, or just stay and listen to other people's questions. If you go and participate, then you act and you'll see change. And I was very intentional with that going into Easy Button. And I've been doing my best to participate and ask questions every opportunity there is. Because I've been in other masterminds that didn't work out, and I just kind of stood on the sidelines. Maybe there could have been better opportunities for me to ask questions. But at the end of the day, if you're just there not to take action, then you're not going to see results. And I think there's a direct correlation between how fast you implement the feedback you receive and the results that you get. And so I think it's helped tremendously. I have not actually closed officially within the first 3 months a lead directly from Easy Button, but I was thinking about this, and I've gotten way more than just closing a deal from a lead that came from you guys, because I'm also getting leads from my cold caller that I have, and he's doing great. But from the coaching, I think had I not joined Easy Button, I wouldn't have 4 or 5 deals in the pipeline with 100,000 roughly in assignment fees set to close in the next 4 to 6 weeks. I was like, well, okay, so sure, those leads didn't come directly from Easy Button, but I know for a fact, had I not separated from my business partner back in July from joining you guys, had I not participated in the coaching
That was like the
calls,
first thing we talked about, I think.
it was the very first thing, and it was unfortunate that it was just something that had to happen. I still like him a lot. He and I are friends. We're still close. We hang out with each other with our kids. But business wise, it just didn't make sense to have that structure be in place. And so talking with you and Nelson back to back, and then I called him up and explained everything. That was the first hurdle that just had to happen, that I had to get over. And so that really freed up the range for so many things, just for things to flow smoother and for me to grow, because I was relying on my business partner for 100% of the dispositions. I would line up walkthroughs and I would sort of be hands off and like, all right, I hope he's going to be able to close this deal. And that could work for some people, but for me, I like being in control of everything. I was pinging him all the time, saying, hey, what's the status of this? What's the status of this deal? Where are we at? How many people are we walking through? Like, it just didn't make sense. I wanted to see everything that was going on in my business. And so it only made sense for us to separate. And to the second point with the coaching, I definitely wouldn't be able to get these deals across the finish line had I not had the opportunity to get direct feedback on these exact deals, my exact situation from Tyler. I'd sort of be stuck by myself, like, oh, does this deal make sense? I guess I'll lock it up for this price and maybe have it fall through. But I was able to go in with confidence, knowing that I'll be able to close. And things happen. I'm going through a deal right now where there's obstacles that still have to be overcome for it to close, but I'm able to bring this to a team, to other clients that have feedback, and to Tyler that can give me feedback on how I can go about it. So more than just the leads, I mean, it's the community and the coaching that has been such a huge plus for me.
Well, one of the things that I'll double click on there, I'll double click on 2 things. One of them is the part about partnerships. And I made a piece of content on this today. We've recorded podcasts on it before, but real estate partnerships are tricky. And my advice to Mason and my advice to most people is that a real estate partnership has to 3x your potential, because if it only 2x's your potential, there's a lot more brain damage and complexity and overhead and revenue that's needed to both make substantial money. And the return on brain damage, right? ROBD, one of my favorite terms, is not there. And so for most solo operators or you guys out there that are just trying to run a lean, mean, profitable machine, you know, Mason has 100 grand closing in the next 4 to 6 weeks. And a lot of that is profit, is because you can be a solo operator. There's not that same kind of pressure. The second piece I'll double click on is the part about coaching. And you're 3 months in with us. It's not abnormal to be 3 months in on a marketing channel or with us and not have a bunch of deals closed yet. You should be getting some that are pretty close. But the normal sales cycle in this business is anywhere from 90 to 180 days. And so we have clients that first month with us, they crush 3 deals. We have clients that their 4th month is their first deal. What Mason's hitting on is valuable for you guys that are listening and doing any kind of marketing, is focusing on the outputs. And Mason's focusing on the outputs and leaning in and letting us help them with that, which is underwriting, sales, making offers, handling objections, finding buyers, right? The things that tie to revenue is so important. Those are the outcomes. Those are the outputs that you control, and then the outcomes take care of themselves. Right? The outcomes of deals and revenue and money are great, but all you can really control is day in and day out the outputs that you make towards those goals. So Mason, what are some of those strategy tweaks, sales tweaks that you've taken into account and started implementing when it comes to negotiating deals, putting deals together, that you've gotten from us and our team on that side of the deal engine that have been valuable for you?
The biggest shift that I've made for my business is not just thinking of my business as a solutions company, but believing it and talking like it. Because before, I would just focus on the 4 framework, right? MCTP, motivation, condition, timeline, price. I would go into the call, just gather that info and kind of just be done with it and be like, all right, like where can my offer land? But after probably a month of working with you guys, I've learned, like, hold on, like, let me take a step back. I think I need to, instead of focus on those 4 pillars right up front, let me see where the seller is at. Like, what's their goal with the property? Like, let me see what solution I can bring to them and really have that be the main focus of my business. And so an example of a property I'm working right now in Tacoma, I talked with the seller. She seemed really distressed, but I couldn't understand why. And I learned that she had squatters at the home that had stayed there previously. They were living with her dad, who unfortunately passed away. Now he's gone and the people are staying in this house, not paying rent. She does not have a good relationship with them. And I said, oh, like, I understand why she wants to sell. She does not like these people. Maybe somehow I can help her out. Like, that was just like my first thought. And so bringing this to Tyler and to the team, to other clients, getting people's thoughts, I was like, well, the ideal scenario is if I could go there, snap my fingers, and have the tenants be gone. Now let me think of a real solution I can provide to make that happen. And that's essentially what my goal was in the walkthrough. I first agreed on a ballpark price. I knew where she needed to be, and I knew that worked for me. It was a good price, and we locked that up. Then I met her at the property, and I was able to work out a cash for key situation. She immediately showed up to the property, started bickering with the tenant, and I show up as the intermediary, trying to be the broker of the conversation. And I was able to settle them down and agree on a solution. And it was essentially cash for keys. I set a time for the same time next week to meet here. The tenants would be there and I would give them cash and they would leave. There were a few other caveats that happened, but instead of just going off of price and like tackling the price and the deal, you don't want commission breath, as you say. So that framework shift of being a solution focused company has really helped me with some of these deals that I'm working.
Dude, it's so important to actually internalize that you are a solution company. It's easy to get on a call with us and hear me say, oh, you got to think of yourself like you're a solution company first. It's much different to wake up and go, no, I'm actually solving real problems. And a lot of the culture in real estate is looking at investors as these slimy predators that are taking advantage of old grandmas. But a lot of the cases, it's like you're talking about. Someone's in a really bad situation. You're taking a massive pain point off their hands and helping them through the whole process. So that is the most important shift that any of you guys can make watching this, listening to Mason's story is whether you're working a W-2, wherever you are in your journey, if you can just think of yourself and internalize you are a solutions company and go into every conversation with that frame, it'll change your business forever. And Mason's an example of that with what he has in the pipeline. So kind of moving towards the end, the latter half of the show here, Mason, I want to know, in your opinion, you've been with us since July, you have 3 months of leads, 3 months of our coaching, you're doing deals, you're making things shake. What to you right now is your biggest constraint currently in your head? And also, what is 6 months from now look like? Like sitting here in April, May of 2026, what do you want your business to look like now that you've made these strides?
Yeah, that's a good question, because before it was leads, which is part of the reason why I really wanted to join Easy Button. I think I'm definitely not at full capacity leads, because now I receive leads from Easy Button. I receive leads from my cold caller, and then I take over everything for my business. It is a lot of work. And I think within another month or two, I'll sort of hit my own capacity of what I can handle for follow-ups, dispositions, acquisitions, and handling everything. I think I would start dismissing some of the warm leads that I have and put those on the side burner. So I think real soon, in a couple months, I'll have to make some hires. And or frankly, I'm going to bring that question to Easy Button to see what would be best. I'm thinking a lead manager to help the warm lead intake, all the leads that come in to handle those intake calls, and partial, if not all, of my follow-ups. And then I just focus on the hot leads and to nurture them, to bring them to fruition, go through property walkthroughs. So in 6 months from now, that's where I hope to be, is to have 1 or 2 other team members helping me out. Quite frankly, Cole, I'm not the biggest fan of making 100 plus follow-ups and being on the phone for multiple hours. I can do it, and I've gotten decent at it. I have a lot of room to improve, but I find most value in meeting people in person. Like when I met this nice lady at her house in this Tacoma deal example, it was really stressful. And, my heart rate rose drastically at several times just because they were yelling, calling each other's names. But after that, when I figured out a solution, and especially the week after, when I handed the tenant cash, he shook my hand and said thank you. And I stood at the property until I saw his little red truck drive off. Like, that was really gratifying. Like, I felt like I provided a service to him because, yeah, he wasn't paying rent. She was involved with drugs, like, not a great guy. He had just come out of prison. But I truly believe that it'll help him on his next step in his life. And of course, with the seller, now the property is vacant, and we're going to be able to close and sell this property for her that she just does not want the headache for. So that's where I want to spend all of my time, is like talking to people in person, really getting to know them, like making a real face-to-face connection, and have a team supporting me so I can allocate 80 and 90% of my time doing that.
Love that, man. That's a great answer. I've done a lot of these. That was very, very well put. And I'm excited to be able to help you in that journey of who to hire. It's an exciting part of this business. It's hard challenge. It's a different kind of challenging, right? Learning to work through people rather than just through your own efforts. It's one of the most challenging and most rewarding parts of growing a business. And I'm excited for that phase for you. For the people listening, man, as we wrap the show, if someone came to you and said, Mason, am I a good fit to work with Easy Button and what they're doing there on the deal engine with the leads and the coaching? How would you answer that question? How does someone know, in your opinion, in your words, who is the right client for us if someone was coming to ask you? However you want to answer that question, I always ask it. I think it's important for the audience to hear. Walk me through that.
Yeah, Easy Button is a great service, and it comes at an expense. So you either need to have a little bit of money, maybe 10 to 15,000 and a lot of time, or you need a lot of money, 40, 50,000 and a little bit of time. At the end of the day, you need to understand that you're investing time and money into a service that will supply you leads and help you close more deals. Well, of course, the coaching, but you're investing in marketing. And so it's going to come from a range of a spectrum, the lower end or the higher end, but you're going to have to sacrifice some time and some money. You also need to be coachable. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable. I said this earlier, but the rate at which you implement feedback immediately will determine how quickly you start seeing results. And so if you aren't that type of person, then learn to be. I actually don't think I was, and I still have so much room to grow and become uncomfortable fast. But that's part of becoming a different version of myself that I believe I'm going through right now. But I've learned, especially with Easy Button and just other parts of life, that is a true statement. And I think a good fit for Easy Button should live true to that. Easy Button is not ideal for somebody who has no money and is looking for their first deal, maybe.
Nope.
There's plenty of resources online. And of
We
course,
have our community for that.
yeah, there you go. And of course, YouTube Academy can help with that. I mean, that's literally where I started. And that's what I did. I did not want to spend any money, didn't really have any money to allocate to this new business idea. And luckily, my wife was on board of sacrificing some of my time. And that took away from me spending time with my kids. But she believed in me. And the only expense was $30 a month for access to those probate cases. And so I did spend that money in the very beginning to get my first deal. And so I think $30 for 4 months, and then I received a $30,000 check. I think that was really worth it. So I think Easy Button is really the step that I took when I was 100% in on my business, because I believed it's got the resources to take me to the next level. And I hope to contribute something back to the community with storytelling or giving thoughts to other clients as well.
I love that, man. Well, for you guys out there listening to the show, we appreciate you. One of the things that Mason wrapped up with was the term 100% in. And I believe that if you're serious about this business, if you are 100% in, if you are coachable, there's not a better business to be in with how large the liquidity events are. We heard Mason talk about in the next 4 to 6 weeks, he has $100,000 in the pipeline. And I hear those stories all across the country every single week. So if you are ready to lean in and dive in, we'd love to hear from you at Easy Button Real Estate. And if you're just getting your journey started chasing that first deal, check out the off-market method also below in the show notes where we can help you get started and chase down that deal. As always, we only grow the show through word of mouth. So tell a friend, family member, coworker. We appreciate you guys that are doing that. The show is growing tremendously week over week. And like I always say, until next time, you're only one deal away.